Hello, welcome to Fox Sports Lab AFL. Chief joining me once again on a Thursday. Welcome, Chief.
Oh, Dicko, another big round coming ahead. We're going to get some tips.
Well, this is huge. I mean, I could tip a bucket, but I'm going to leave that to you. We're going to kick off. This is a cracker on tonight's game. So Port and Geelong, Port 10 straight. Kenny's got them flying. Doesn't even need a headset down the boundary line. He's just there for morale at the moment. But Geelong got significant players back into their lineup. So Danger Holmes and Dunkley, which helps. I just want to touch on this game because the last 11 times these teams have played, they've gone under total points, whereas Geelong this year, believe it or not, have been in the high-scoring games. So what's your read initially on Port, their form, but Geelong coming in with some stars now?
Yeah, it's an interesting game, this one. I hope we get a great game. It should be a good one. You just wonder whether Port are due to come off a little bit. Mind you, I did their game last week, and they were probably lucky to beat the Bulldogs. It was basically Zach Butters that won the game for him. Yeah. He was on fire, and he's having a career-defining year. So he's been absolutely outstanding. But they do grow a leg at home in front of their fans. Now, you mentioned Dangerfield coming back in, also Mitch Duncan coming back, and Max Holmes gives them some great run. So maybe the Cats are about to find some of their best form, which they need to, because, you know, we're talking about the last 9 or 10 weeks now before we run into the final. So they've got to be jockeying for position. So I'm expecting a decent game, and I hope it's a high-scoring game.
And you're expecting Jeremy Cameron, so 7 goals in 4 weeks. So started the season hot, gone cold a little bit, and against top 8 teams, though, he's averaging 2.5. So expecting a big one out of him tonight.
Yeah, it's not just that he's been super quiet. He's been inaccurate, which has hurt, where he was super accurate to start the season. So that makes a difference as well. And Big Tomahawk, he's been a little bit quiet last couple of weeks after bursting onto the scene. So I'm expecting both of them to fire up, make it a cracking game.
All right, Lions in Sydney. This is an interesting. So Lions come off a little belting from the Hawks at the G. They're 5-0 so far at the Gabba this year. And they've been incredible at keeping opposition down. So average points against 68 at home and away 89. So they've certainly got something in their favour at the Gabba. But do you give the Swans a hope tonight on Friday?
I think you've always got to give the Swans a hope. They've got some quality players. They're very well coached. But they've been very up and down this year. Brisbane, as you say, are like a number of interstate teams. They're so much better at home than they are away. That was a dreadful loss last week. They had an opportunity to consolidate that spot in the top 4, and they've left themselves wide open now by dropping that game to the Hawks. See, Richmond and Dunstall have gone out. Their form hasn't been great, so they're going to try and regenerate for the back end of the year. Look, you've got to tip Brisbane at home. I think you've got to go with your gut feel there. But Sydney are a little bit of an X factor. You never quite know what you're going to get from them.
Sticking with our form there on key forwards, eh? So is that a ploy from Gunston, get out of the way? Because Joe's 19 goals in 5 games at the Gabba. Joe Danaher. So he has been super, hasn't he? I mean, he cops his criticism as Joe the Goose at times, and I've been one of his biggest critics. But this year, he's been incredible, hasn't he?
Well, he's certainly been good at the Gabba. He seems comfortable there, but again, when you're playing deep forward, you're a product of what's happening further afield, and the Lions are a much better team at the Gabba. So their midfield was horrible last week. Didn't make it easy for the forwards. He'll get a better look at it this time around. And, of course, we know that the Swans are undermanned down back. So it was interesting. I just think Jack Gunston was in pretty average form. So I thought rather than making the coach drop him, get together with the coach, put your heads together and work out the best way for him to have an impact as we run in towards the finals.
All right, now Giants and Freo. Interesting one, this one. Giants have been good starters. So Fremantle have only won 1 of their last 16 first quarters. So when you look at this, so there's a slight advantage for the Giants. But Freo have been in good form too. So where do you see this game?
They had been in good form, Freo, and I thought they were starting to march towards the finals till they dropped that one at home against the Tigers last week. And again, I spoke about Brisbane having a bad loss last week. That was a bad loss for Freo because they are right back in the ruck now, outside the 8, looking in, trying to force their way back in. And now they've got to go on the road and win these games. The Giants, again, a little bit hot and cold, very much reliant upon Toby Green and what sort of impact he's going to have on the game. So if Toby has a big one, it's going to be tough for Freo. I think Freo can win away from home and get themselves back in the mix, but it won't be easy. And they do need to find a way to start games better.
Yeah, and let's go to the G because Richmond, they look won't say they look different, but he's certainly putting his little sprinkling of fairy dust, Andrew McQualter, on the Tigers at the moment. And coming back from Perth, and then they've got the Saints. So Saints have been on fire at the G this year, won 4 or 5. So there's no worries about the Saints winning at the MCG. But do you give Richmond a little run here now? Do you think they're going to string it together 3 in a row?
Yeah, I think they've got some momentum up. I think they're playing good footy under Andrew McQualter. I think they look fresh. They've got a few players that are back with games under their belt, looking fitter, starting to play a little bit of the old Tigers form. So I think they've got a bit of momentum, and they might actually start to push and give themselves a chance of making the 8. So I think this is a really tough game to call.
What about our punters out there? Max King, 4+ goals this week, Chief?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of leaning the Tigers' way. So if the Tigers are going to win, you probably don't want Max King kicking a bag. But hasn't he been in great form since he's come back? And maybe he's ready to take that next step as a key forward.
No doubt about that. Now, we're doing this game on Sunday. So Carlton and Gold Coast, and the numbers last week pointed in the right direction for Carlton, albeit inaccurate in front of goal. So we know what finishing work, and everyone's had their opinion on that. But Gold Coast, on the other hand, the way they hit the bye was incredible. So 1-2 in Darwin. So their form stacks up. Do you give Carlton a hope in this one? Because you only need an inch of momentum to turn this all around.
Yeah, I know you keep making excuses for the Blues. You keep trying to find light at the end of the tunnel, but they're playing dreadful football. I know some of the numbers are okay, but the way they're moving the ball is alarming. I don't think it's helping their forwards. They're not getting a crumbing presence at ground level in the forward 50, which is putting more pressure on both Mackay and Curnow. So I think that's creating issues. I'm starting to lean the Suns' way to go. I think they're playing a good brand of footy, and I think they've got enough run around the ground to really trouble the Blues pace-wise.
Yeah, and that was Michael Voss ringing your phone then, because his ears were burning, just getting a couple of tips on goal kicking.
Getting an inside word, my friend.
There is, and I'll give you a little insight in this game. Noah Anderson, last 3 times he's played Carlton, he's had 30+, so there's a little nugget for you. All right, just to finish it out, North Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs. So North Melbourne have been much improved under Ratton, been competitive, although it hasn't been hitting the win column, as you would say. But the Western Bulldogs, I gave it to them on Tuesday about their uncontested game. So I'm not sure you can turn anything around in 7 days in terms of the way you play. So significant. But where do you see with this one? Do you see this is the opportunity for North Melbourne to get after the Western Bulldogs?
Well, North will certainly get after them. I mean, they're showing some promising signs. They've been competitive for periods of the game, but this is the game the Bulldogs needed to have. They just need to get a good win under their belt. I thought they were disappointing against the Cats. They had opportunities. Their numbers haven't been too bad either in certain areas, but they're not getting anything out of Aaron Norton up forward. I think that's a concern for them. Rory Lobb's not dominating up forward either. In actual fact, Jamari Ugle-Hagan looks the more dangerous forward for the Bulldogs at the moment. So they've got a few issues of their own, but I think this is the sort of game that might sting them back into form.
And you can see the theme I'm going with here when I mention the next guy, the big Nick Larkey, 17 goals in his last 5 games. So the way they move the ball, the Western Bulldogs, you have to give him a chance to kick another bag, surely.
Well, absolutely. I think Nick Larkey's a really good player that kicks very accurately, makes the most of his opportunities. And, even though he's playing in the bottom team, he's having a run for the Coleman medal. So good on him. I think he's a quality player.
All right. Now, I know you played Saddle in the Century back in the day. I'm Tony Barber today. Let's go through the tips really quick.
All right, but you've got to give your tips as well.
Absolutely, I will. Port and Geelong.
Port at home.
Yeah, I'm going Port. Lions and Sydney.
Lions at home.
Lions for me. Giants and Freo.
I'm going for Freo.
I'm going for the Giants. Richmond, St Kilda.
Richmond.
Yes, Tigers. Carlton and Gold Coast.
Gold Coast.
That was like a Brownlow medal.
Who are you going for?
Gold Coast. I'm doing the same. And to round it out, North Melbourne, Western Bulldogs.
Bulldogs all day.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. All right, Chief, thanks very much for your contribution this week. And we'll look forward to seeing you on Monday for a review. Thanks for listening.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.